Try not to talk through my hands too much. You know, Italian in me.
June 1st, 2009. The warmth of the day belies the date. I'm not sure which direction that goes, but there was a snowstorm around here last night. So my wife said, you better wear your good sweatshirt when you head to the border tomorrow. So here I am, Port Director Paul Mongillo. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Gordy. How are you doing today?
Last time we saw you, you were on the stage introducing your family, and that was a wonderful, impressive ceremony, that change of command ceremony.
Yeah, that was very historic and very meaningful to me. One, as you mentioned, having my family, my son, brother, and 2 of my 3 sisters here, because they see the things I've done over the years, but really not really gotten to the depth or understanding maybe a lot of the things that I've done over the years. So it was very special, and as well as the community leaders, both in Canada and the United States.
And of course the bagpipes, which are my favorites. It was just wonderful. And Calvin Castine and myself love to go to events like that, and as it turned out, we were the only I think the only major media that covered the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely, and we're very appreciative of it. I have seen the DVD.
Yeah,
it was great. It brings back a lot of memories, something that I'll have to cherish, you know, the rest of my years.
Well, we're delighted to have you here at the port, and boy, if you don't have your feet wet yet, you will by tonight, I think. How's it been?
It's been very good. I mean, I just finished up my 3rd month, believe it or not. It's gone by like it seems like yesterday. But it's, as you say, it's just learning the operations of what we do here, how we do things here, and trying to assimilate, you know, new plans as we move forward. And today, as you noticed, today's the full implementation of the Western Hemisphere Travel Initiative, meaning that you need to enter the United States based on the 9/11 Commission 4 types of documents. One is your U.S. passport card. The second one is the U.S. passport or a Canadian passport. The 3rd type of document is the Trusted Traveler Program, which is your Nexus card, which is for vehicles on the northern border. The Sentry card is vehicles on the southern border, and then your FAST for the commercial trucks, which are in the northern and southern borders crossings for those truck drivers in the commercial entity. And then your 4th type of document is your enhanced driver's licenses, which you know, several provinces in Canada, along with states in the United States, have adopted these, which came out of the 9/11 Commission to not only secure the border, but also those local border communities having documents without having to use their passport and saying, hey, I forgot it, to cross for those everyday travelers. So good things all around.
Planes were compliant a couple of years ago, right?
The airplanes in 2007, the airplanes were compliant in the air. What's happening today is on the land borders and your sea environments are WITI compliant.
So it's for people who are coming in, both Americans and foreign visitors, Canadians and others.
For Canadians, it's Western Hemisphere, so it's travel for United States citizens, Canadian citizens, and Mexican citizens that are traveling in the Western Hemisphere, the Bermuda and the Caribbean islands. And Bahamas is what this Western Hemisphere. You still need a passport as you travel around the world. You'll need your passport, but for crossing the border or a sea environment, you will just need a WITI compliant document.
We want to tell people that there are lots of places where they can get information. They'll get information if they come through here today, especially if they don't have their passport, right?
Yes, as they cross the border today, and has been prior to today, we give them tear sheets which tells us about the 4 types of documents. But starting today, we're giving a non-compliant tear sheet to those that do not have a compliant document, so that they, again, will get the information. There is no penalties or any fines associated with this. They're still going to let them in. It's not going to delay the processing at all. What happens with the WITI document, Gordy, is that
we have to tell people what WITI is. That's how you pronounce the Western Hemisphere
Travel Initiative is what we commonly refer to as a WITI. As you know, in the government, we have a lot of acronyms.
Oh, of course.
And we try to give names to those acronyms. So WITI, the Western Hemisphere Travel Initiative, what we're trying to do with that is just prior to 9/11 and since 9/11 is we had a lot of multiple types of documents, birth certificates, certified originals, that from 50 states and provinces and things like that. So it's just helping the officers on the primary lanes have a narrower scope of documents, 4 types of documents, so that as the person comes up to primary with a WITI compliant document, they would hold it up in front of the reader as they slowly go up to the primary booth, that information gets transmitted. So then at the primary booth, the officer does not have to handle the document at all, which saves 6 to 8 seconds. And when you think 6 to 8 seconds is not a lot of time, but through hundreds of cars a day, through thousands of cars a week, through a month in, month out for an entire year, it's a considerable amount of time where the officer's not handling the documents and they're just going right into the questioning. You know, the purpose of the trip, what are they bringing back, things like that, so that we can let in the legitimate trade and travel into the United States.
There are always some naysayers, and we read the blogs and we talk to people, and tragically some of the media predicted there were going to be hour-long lines today, and here we are. I don't even know what time it is. It's 11 o'clock in the morning on June 1st. Things are moving very nicely, I might say.
Yes, it's very smooth. I think part of what happens, Gordy, is that the port of entry here is new since October. Historically, we've had 6 lanes of traffic for the vehicles, whereas now we have 10 lanes of traffic. So, of course, with the increased traffic, you know, you have the staffing, the booths open. It makes the wait, what may seem a 5 or 10 minute wait right now, is really not a significant amount of time. You know, the goal is always to keep it well under an hour, you know, at the hour threshold. But since I've been here the last 3 months, you know, 15, 20 minutes is tops, even with all 10 lanes being open. So it is, with the new facility, the state of the art, a lot of things helps facilitate the traffic. You had mentioned earlier about letting people know how to, you know, where to get information. They can always go to the cbp.gov website. We also have getyouhome.gov. Also, it gives you information.
I don't know that one. Getyouhome.gov?
Which explains all the WITI compliant documents that you need and the different things. So there are multiple websites. We've had newspaper ads, TV ads, magazine ads, radio spots. So they've done things as far back as the Super Bowl. On Super Bowl Sunday in the third quarter, they had a national spotlight, which millions of people watched the Super Bowl. So there's been a lot of publicity out there. Plus, the officers here at the port have been doing it as well.
There are some nuances to the new laws that we'll try to cover, because we're going to look around quite a bit today. But it's different if you have minor children. It's different if you go on a cruise. You know, and it's different if you're Native American, and we have a lot of those here in the North Country.
Absolutely, Gordy. With the Native Americans, you know, they're still working to develop and to produce the tribal cards for the various Indian groups, but right now their documents that they have are considered to be WITI compliant, and the Native Americans would not be refused entry into the United States based on the document alone. We also have with children that are 16 years of age and younger still will be allowed to produce their birth certificate, original or certified copy, as they cross through the borders, as well as children that are 19 years of age and younger that are associated with school groups, sports organizations, clubs, things of this type of nature. When they're coming across in that group, will also be able to use their birth certificate, certified or original copy. So there are some exceptions, but by and large, again, the U.S. citizens, Canadian citizens that are not compliant, are not being refused entry and turned around or not allowed into the various countries. We're just giving them the handsheet saying this is what needs to be compliant, this is how you get compliant. It's that simple.
Ultimately, we hope that all the states bordering the Canadian border and Mexico on the southern end will be able to offer those enhanced licenses, as New York State and Vermont do. You and I mentioned this before the camera rolled. Right now, there are only 4.
Right, and you also have the state of Washington and Arizona online. But as each state is developing their own technology, their own costs associated with it, more and more will come large, because this will be, as you say, once the frontiers, northern and southern borders have been done, then it's a lot easier on the interiors just to follow suit. As people are renewing their licenses and things like that, or they're lost or stolen, then they can, you know, get the new technology and they'll be WITI compliant, as opposed to, oh, I forgot my passport, I'm in Canada, I can't get back home. You know, what am I to do?
Yeah. I want to mention again, if people are just turning on their television sets, we're interviewing Paul Mongillo, who is the Newport director, several months here, and he's doing a great job. But I also want to mention that our cameras probably haven't stood in this spot for a while, Calvin, right? So this $110 million project here is now going full board. Last time I was here to do an interview with Steve Bronson for a magazine, the sign wasn't even going. That sign's beautiful.
Yeah, several weeks ago, the GSA finished putting up the United States of America, and I got to tell you, at night it's very impressive. Although the lights don't directly shine on it, with the lighting that is here at the port, it stands out really, really nice. It complements the sign on the cargo facility that says Champlain.
Just to show exactly what we have here, we have 10 lanes, right? And you have what, 4 going today?
We have
5?
We have 5 lanes going. We always have the Nexus lane is always the furthest left lane, or your fast lane in the cargo environment is also the Trusted Traveler Program lane. So even if you had 10 lanes of traffic, if you had that Trusted Traveler card, you would be able to utilize that one lane with no traffic. You just get right up to the front of the line and process through. Although any lane can take that technology, that's one of the benefits of having the Trusted Traveler card, is that you may not have to wait in these. If there were a line, you wouldn't have to wait in it necessarily.
Now, you also have secondary inspection on the other side here, which we can see in the distance, right?
Yes, so you have a secondary area, which is a more, primary is just primarily getting through, verifying the documents, the people are matching up, asking a few questions to see what is being brought back, where they're heading, simple, basic questions like that. If it requires a more in-depth information or time-consuming interview, then they would be sent to secondary to handle any of those types of issues and questions. Along with the 10 lanes, the 9 vehicle and the 1 Nexus lane, Gordy, we also have a lane just for buses.
Buses, we saw one come through when we were standing there.
Yeah, and
very smooth process.
Very smooth processing, and there are certain times of the year, Victoria Day weekend, Easter weekend, could be Memorial Day weekend, where we know that the trust traffic is a lot more enhanced. So what we do is we also utilize our cargo facility, and we get the regular Greyhound buses and the chartered buses, scheduled buses. We take care of those, but a lot of the we outreach on the Canadian side to the various bus companies and tour groups to help facilitate, and we bring them all into our cargo facility, because with 105 acres out here, you have a lot of facility back there to do that. And when working with the various companies, rather than have every bus, if they could even help out by having, say, Canadian citizens or U.S. citizens, or those that need requiring, rather than hold up every single bus for processing, we can do a lot of it on the bus. You know, the I-94s and things like that, of course they need to come in, but we can limit that, and that happens by outreach, and it works really well. I was just here during the Victoria Day weekend and stood back in the cargo area for well over an hour, and the process, whether I was in line with the buses, whether I was inside the building watching the processing, the officers and the management here has really done an outstanding job with doing a lot of this. And a lot of this goes back to the people, is outreaching and bringing the community together so that all the concerns are met at one time, so we don't have issues with every single thing. It's a smooth process, and I think it helps everybody out.
And over Calvin's right shoulder, the truck lanes.
Yeah, we have truck lanes. We have 6 truck lanes there, along with the fast lane, which again is the furthest left-hand lane. There's an oversized load, a lane there as well for those commodities that might come in that won't necessarily fit through the normal booth lanes. But it works really. It's really a smooth process. I mean, and it's being refined all the time. We look at our processes, you know, where we can split them to go into if it needs to be examined further, it's going into the cargo area, or it needs some type of fees are being paid, or it's being released to head into the commerce of the United States, or as well as it needs to have a VACA scan and things. So it's all coordinated. We have officers all out and about, so it runs really smooth.
We're going to look a lot closer at that later on. It's amazing how they can examine the materials. I might mention, when I interviewed Steve last time for a magazine article, he said it amounts to billions of dollars and of stuff that comes through the Champlain border crossings every year. This is a busy, busy place.
It is, and it ranges. Your commodities go from A to Z, whether it's textiles, food products, fuels of various types. I mean, you name the commodity, and probably the Port of Champlain is processing it at one time or another throughout the year.
It's terrific to watch it all happen, and it happens so smoothly, because we've read other reports and seen other reports that weren't so favorable toward what was going to happen on June 1st. That's why Calvin and I are so pleased to be standing here today with a little warm sunshine on our backs, and to see things working so well for you here.
Yeah, again, I think a lot of it goes into the preparations. I mean, we've had meetings, we've talked about it, we have the staffing in place. We know typically, historically, that the weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sundays, will double what we, on typical day like today, the first Monday of June, we'll see about 1,350 cars. The weekends, you'll see, around 3,000, give or take. And then, of course, a little bit more with the holiday weekends we recently had, Victoria Day for Canada, Memorial Day here for the United States. So things like that. And, I call the 100 days of summer between Memorial Day and Labor Day is really the busy time.
We'd settle for 100 days of summer any year.
I used that term recently at a meeting, and someone had said, like 100 days of summer. You haven't been here. You don't know the weather. I said, I'm not talking about weather. I'm just talking days. 100 days. Typically when you refer to the summer months for Customs and Border Protection, it's Memorial Day to Labor Day. The brunt when school is out, people are on the move, and a lot of traveling and different things out of the ordinary vacations. But again, I don't foresee that we're going to have a lot of issues or problems. I mean, historically, we have the data. We have a beautiful new facility that helps, mitigate all of that, the lines and things like that. So we want people to come by and feel at ease when they do come by.
You mentioned that this port is unique in so many ways. It's a big land area, 110
acres, I've been told.
110 acres. Far different from Detroit or Buffalo or the other place where you have to separate everything. You've got bridges, you've got so many different kinds of ways to enter the country. It's unique here in many ways. And it's a big port because it covers 10
ports of entry.
10 ports of entry.
Between Fort Covington to Rouse's Point, along with Albany, which has an airport and a seaport, will fall under my area of responsibility. So it's a vast area, but again,
I think you got big shoulders.
Yeah, and I have good staff. I have to say that the management staff, my assistant port directors, the chiefs and supervisors, even down to the officers, the import specialists, entry specialists, all employees help share because it's our facility. It's not just, at the end of the day, we have to make decisions, and I say constantly, we make decisions and we move forward. It's not, well, that wasn't my idea or this wasn't, because it's all, everybody knows what we're doing, and there's no secretive to, I don't hold back and say, okay, this is my way or no way. It's our port, and to that end, we all take ownership. We all have pride in the place, and we want to see it be successful.
I'm so glad we're here to have you explain this. And you mentioned railroads. People might not even think of the railroads being affected at a port.
Right. We also have, to the port of Champlain in Rouse's Point, we have dual, on the same track, but dual missions. You have the Amtrak train, which crosses daily, along with the rail traffic, the Canadian National, Canadian Pacific Rail. So we also have a VACA set up there, so it does, take scans of the different trains and images as they're coming across north and south into the United States, into Canada, as well as Fort Covington also has a rail station. So it's unique that you have a little bit of everything here. Outside of, it's probably unique also that you don't have a bridge associated with the area.
We do have a prime waterway that goes by here.
But you do have Lake Champlain, and as of May 15th through the end of September, we have a boat dock in place. So as you come around the fort there, you see the CBP officers there. We have a trailer there. We have the boat dock is in the water, so we're also processing those boats. And the same thing on the permits with the I-68, if I may mention, is that if you're applying for an I-68 this year after June 1st, so today forward, you must be WITI compliant in order to get that permit. However, for those that have had them filled out last year, we are honoring those this year, again allowing people the time needed to become WITI compliant. So we're not going to hurt the boating industry this summer, and we're not going to hurt the traveling public throughout the summer months, as I mentioned, the 100 days of summer, because we want people to know that, yes, you still can come in and cross the border. We're just going to give you the tear sheet and explain even again the documents that you do need.
It's hard for us to believe, in light of what we're doing, all the other media. We've seen newspapers, television, radio stations. It's hard to believe, as they used to say in the service, there are always a few who don't get the word. And so that's what we're here for. But there are a few people coming through today who I'm sure were a little embarrassed because they don't even know it's June 1st, and they don't know they had to have one of those pieces of paper or their passport today, but you've been very kind to them.
Oh, absolutely, and really, Gordy, since midnight, I believe we've had a handful that have probably been non-compliant.
Only 3 or 4 before we came here. That
Right.
to me was amazing all by itself.
Yeah,
And the Canadians have been wonderful.
yeah, and like I say, in general, we're well over 90% being compliant, and it's going to be the exception rather than the rule that people are not compliant. But even those that aren't compliant, again, it's a simple tear sheet. Here's what you need. It was effective today as we move forward. And, we'll see, and a lot of people we've seen in the past, as we've mentioned, hey, June 1st is coming, you need a WITI compliant document. We've heard, yes, we've applied, I'm just waiting on it, or here's my receipt and all those kinds of things. So we know that people have been complying and being WITI compliant. So, like I say, I think it's not going to be a whole big issue for us here in the airport.
So what we're doing here today is being replicated at most of the other border crossings, probably north and south across the nation.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. We have
nobody half as good as you're doing it, Paul.
I'm sure. We're well prepared. I'm sure as the reports get out across the country, as people will see the national news, local news, and the various stories, newspaper, internet, all the various media outlets, you're going to see where, by and large, it's going to be a non-event, I will say, just because we have been putting this word out, and we've done surveys in the past. So we felt confident that we were going to be in a good position, but not so that we weren't going to be prepared for it.
I hate to cast aspersions on other media, and so I won't mention any names, but I did watch a television report that was a bit distressing with a wonderful person who was crossing the border and didn't have a passport from Canada, saying, I'll never come across the border again, I don't have a passport. It's easy to get some form of identification that complies with what we're doing here today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell people that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I say, by and large, the folks and the Canadian citizens have documents. They've been using their passports for years. I've seen, even personally, I've seen passports that have been recently renewed, and so I think by and large the word is out. Earlier today, there was an officer had told me that a 90-year-old lady had come in from Canada recently and was saying this was probably her last time, just because she didn't feel she was going to be crossing the border much in the rest of her life. But it wasn't because, I have to get a different document and things like that. But like you say, these are going to be exceptions to the rule, and by and large, the traveling public has been outstanding. They've been gracious. They've been more than compliant. They've been receptive to this. This isn't something that just happened recently.
Goodness, no.
We've been talking about this since January of 2008, and really for several, maybe even 2 to 3 years before that. So it's been a long time in coming, and I think overall what it does is it enhances the security of our borders. It also enhances the opportunity for the officers to not necessarily handle the documents, to speed up the processing, because again, we want the by and large, the travelers that are coming in, the trade and tourists and things like that, we don't want to hold that up.
The enhanced driver's license and the passport card are great. I was in the post office mailing a letter this morning, a gentleman getting all his documents together to upgrade his passport. In the post office this morning, I saw him mailing it, and I said, yeah, you're doing the right thing, and he smiled.
Yeah.
So they're getting the word.
Yeah, after I had done my passport last year and did not get a passport card, but if you get it at the same time, you eliminate some of the fees. So recently I got my passport card, and I also got a Nexus card and things, because I will go to Canada for meetings and things like that, and I may be with others that have the Nexus card, but I have a passport, and it's like you can't, we could go in that lane. So like I say, it does speed up the process in that respect. But again, as people have to determine their usage and their frequency and what mode do they want to do, but the expenses that are associated with getting an enhanced driver's license when yours expires or is lost or stolen or things like that is minimal if you're crossing the border, because then you don't necessarily have to have your passport to do that. You'll still need your passport to travel outside the Western Hemisphere, but you won't need it to cross the border here.
Before we leave this spot, and we're going to do a lot of looking around today and showing people what you have here, because we're very proud of what you're doing up here, I want to ask you a question. I know there's a big umbrella. The umbrella is Homeland Security, and Customs and Border are underneath that umbrella, just to let people know how that works.
Yes, the Department of Homeland Security is our department. Back in March of 2003, they took 23 separate agencies and formed them into the Homeland Security Department. Agencies such as FEMA, agencies like the United States Border Patrol, agencies like the United States Customs Service, agencies like the United States Department of Agriculture, and also the Department of Justice's Department of Immigration and Naturalization Service. So those three, Border Patrol is a separate entity within the DHS umbrella, but with Customs and Border Protection, you took agricultural officers, you took immigration inspectors, and you also took customs officers and form them into one. So where you have the one face at the border, or one team, one fight. And so, and literally, we've had agricultural specialists over the years that had the opportunity to become officers that have been doing so in the last year or so. So they truly are the one face at the border, having the three different entities as part of Customs and Border Protection. So although we had hundreds of years from these different agencies and the traditions and the missions, we have formed them into one, and each day, this past March was our end of our fifth year, so we're into our sixth year. So again, a lot of things are still, we're still growing together, learning the missions and all that, but again, it's all in the interest of serving the public better and doing our mission better.
I know you're not responsible for what happens up yonder beyond the border, but what paperwork are they going to require based on this new initiative? Anything at the Canadian side?
No, the Canadians are still going to do what has traditionally been them. The hope is that down the road, that as WITI is fully implemented in the United States, and the issues, the technologies and any issues that may be born, and also meetings between the two nations, trying to show, hey, eventually we'll all be one. I mean, that's the goal, is that eventually we'll be one in the Northern Hemisphere, with the Canada, U.S., in the Western Hemisphere. All the documents are interchangeable with each other. And it's getting that way because Canada now is 5 provinces have the enhanced driver's license. Like as you mentioned earlier, we have 4 states in the U.S. with, others coming on board, later on this year and into the future. But again, it's that wouldn't have happened without these combined talks and different things of having the same shared missions.
It's a wonderful neighbor we have to the north, and we can only pay them high compliments because not only do we love the people, but we love to have them come down here and visit our stores and our beaches and our hotels and motels, and even if they just drive through our area. It's great to have them here. Oh,
no, absolutely. I mean, I see it. I'm out here a little bit each, try to be out as much as I can. But as I'm out and I'm listening to the officers talk to the various passengers crossing the travelers, crossing the border, you hear a lot of that. Where are you going? And then you ask the officers, well, where's that at? And they'll say, oh, a lot of them go there. They like that. It's a vacation resort for them, or they're coming here to go shopping, or various things, as you mentioned. And it's wonderful. And we work in close concert with our counterparts with CBSA along the border and things. So to try to make sure that everything, if there's any issues, we're right there in the forefront addressing them. Just this past week, I've had several conversations with my counterparts with CBSA, just saying, June 1st is coming. This is what we're doing. I provided them some literature that we were handing out, and offered them the opportunity if there's any questions or concerns that they may have or that they're hearing, because they're going to hear the same questions on their side. They're, what are they doing there? And if we can provide them those little bits of information, it's going to make this whole area that much better in crossing the borders, as well as working with our consulate. I mean, they do a tremendous job in Montreal at the American consulate doing outreaches with the WITI. And in fact, they had a person here today taking a look at what was the impact of WITI. So as they report out and they do their things, they're also providing up-to-the-date, latest information, and there is no conflict, and so we can nip any rumors, innuendos, things right in the bud.
That's a good point. And at the end of this day, when this program is through, the last thing you, Calvin, and myself want to do is frighten people away from the border, from coming across here. This whole initiative is to keep us safe on both sides of the border, and not to make it harder for people, but to make them feel more secure.
No, absolutely. I mean, we're not adding to the process. We've already been doing the same things. The only thing that changed is having documents limiting the amount of documents that we would have to read and tie up the personnel into interpreting and determining. Most of the decisions can be made right on primary, and like I say, we only want to look at those that we need to look at, not have secondary full with there's another person without a WIDI compliant document. We understand that, and that's not what we're looking for. We want the people that we need to see. As we talked earlier about our partners, both the United States Border Patrol, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, our ICE agents, also with Air and Marine, all our different entities within the DHS. I speak with them regularly and work out when we have different scenarios going on like today to let them know, hey, this is what we're doing, because it may affect their areas. They may see an increase based on something that we might be doing, or vice versa. So again, it's just being everybody on the same page, everybody working together, because that's what's expected of us, and it's very simple to do. A simple phone call and to talk to your counterpart.
I didn't mean to make you stand in the same place for half an hour, but you're so good at what you do and so knowledgeable about this. I don't want anybody to shut their TV off today without understanding this whole process thoroughly, and you're doing a great job.
Well, I thank you for the opportunity, Gordy. You guys do a great many things. I see many of your shows, out there on the airways. You do a lot of good for the public and things like this. If I can ever do anything to help, or issues or clarifications, please don't hesitate to contact me or a member of my staff, and we'll get you the information you need.
That's great. We're going to take a look around if you don't mind.
No, not at all. We'd be happy to show you.
Great. I'm looking behind us. Remember we said no backup? It's 11:45.
Absolutely. And you got one.
There's nobody here.
There's nobody here.
Isn't that amazing and wonderful? Just a couple of motorcycles, cars coming up. That couldn't be any smoother. I think you planned it this way.
It's good. It looks good on the planning side, but I think it was just the preparation, having the facility to be able to handle the volume of traffic that we are, and then also having the lanes, is another key component of it. So it's a trifecta thing. It wasn't anything that we did, but I'm pleased to see this, especially for today. I mean, and I think as we move forward, it really will show that there really wasn't this public scare, so to speak, the naysayers and things. But
that's great. That's wonderful. Calvin moved his tripod here for a reason. Explain why we're here.
Well, what we're showing here, Gordy, is when you have a enhanced WIDI document, whether it's the enhanced driver's license or the your Nexus card, also the U.S. passport card, you can hold it up as you're driving from approaching the primary lane. Just hold it up in your palm. All the occupants in the vehicle.
Right inside the window.
Right inside the window, and just hold it up. I mean, it could stay in its sleeve, but they give you a protective sleeve, but you'd want to take it out just to hold it up as you're crossing right through here and at your slow speed, and then you'll stop at the primary officer up there, and all that data would, by the time you got from here to there, is already going to have been populated. And then again, where the speed comes in, where it picks up, is that the officer then doesn't have to handle all those documents and swipe them or do anything. All that's been done by just holding it up as you're passing in the vehicle. How's that for modern technology?
It's wonderful. This modern digital age, I imagine there was a bit of a learning curve for the officers.
There is. I mean, this technology is new. We've just had it in probably a little over a month, late April to early May, when they installed it. And ever since then, as officers and the traveling public have come up to the primary booths and they have a WIDI compliant document, the officers have been explaining. We've been handing out tear sheets to let them know this is what you need to do as you approach the lane on your next visit. And by and large, they get that and they do that. So again, that's where the time speeds up, because we're not physically handling the documents.
But these documents are not required. In other words, I've got a passport in my pocket that won't scan here. The passport card would if I had one, but I've got the passport and I still would have to physically show it to the officer.
Absolutely, you would show it to the officer and he would scan it through the reader. So, but in time, when maybe your passport would expire in the future for the nominal fee, you would get a passport along with your passport card, and you take care of both documents. Perfect. And then you have it when you're traveling outside the Western Hemisphere through the air. But when you're crossing the border here, then you're going to have your passport card that's in your wallet like your license, and you're set.
No matter where you're traveling or how you're traveling, this initiative affects everybody.
Absolutely. And
land, sea, and air.
Land, sea, and air. And now that the land and the sea are, on board with the air. Like I say, the air was in early 2007. It was implemented in the air environment. So, as you mentioned before, as we've talked, it's not your grandfather's port of entry anymore. and the grandfathers would say, well, back in the day, we didn't have to do all this. But I'm sure a lot of the concerns back in the day aren't as prevalent as they are today. The world has changed, technology has changed, and all we're doing is making it a simpler, safer, secure border, not only for the traveling public, but also for the employees that work here.
It's very interesting. Well, this Canadian border is a long border, isn't it?
It is very long, much longer than the southern border. And it's, but again, a lot of things you've seen over just since 9/11, the way things have been on the northern border. Having worked up there, after that, in several places, it's like, it's a lot different. And even the outports that we have are very, I won't say nostalgic, but they're very historic.
They are nostalgic. Some of them are going to be changed too. I can tell you that.
Just by the approach that was done, the pre 9/11 to post 9/11, the staffing, the facilities, and all that. So even within our area, we're going to get some new facilities and too. So all that is welcome with open arms, because it only helps to enhance what we're doing on a daily basis, in the community and for our country. So, like I say, you have a lot of dedicated staff, employees that are here dedicating their lives to securing the American border. We are the America's front line, the first line of defense. So, and they take their job very seriously, as they should.
I like what I hear from you and the other people we've interviewed up here, in that you are constantly paying attention to what's going on in both countries, so that all of a sudden Easter doesn't come up on you by surprise. All of a sudden, when the planes are flying from Plattsburgh International Airport, you don't all of a sudden have a bunch of people coming through. You're prepared for just about anything here.
No, that's true, and I think historically it helps us too. And I challenge the staff and everyone to think outside the box, so to speak. Just don't approach everything, well, this is how I've done it. I've been here 5, 10 years.
I don't want to hear that.
Or yesterday. It's always thinking we're all trying to get to the same place. We're making America safer. We're trying to protect our borders. But there are many approaches, and it doesn't have to be my idea or your idea. As long as it's our idea and it's all viable and it's getting us to the same place, it kind of empowers the employees to say, hey, I'm a part of this process. I'm a part of doing the things that we're doing. And that's kind of what I challenge myself to do, to make it our port and their port, not so much that, yes, I'm responsible for a lot of the things that go on, but I don't have to be, I can rely on everybody else. It's collectively, we're going to make this a better place, and we have already, and they do a great job each and every day. Makes my job an awful lot easier, if I can say that.
Yes, you certainly can, and we can see that here. We're going to move along.
Okay.
All right, we're getting closer to the action here, aren't we, huh?
Yeah, you're inching me closer and closer to the primary area.
Yeah. So the whole process actually is quite swift, but a lot of it involves electronics, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, from once you stop at the beginning of the lane and you start coming in, you have various pieces of equipment, license plate readers, you have the RFID technology, and here you have the RPMs, the radiation portal monitor, where it's just every car, every person that's coming through the ports of entry are being scanned for emitting any radiological things, from as simple as having a medical isotope from having stress tests and things like that, But any time that you would have a primary alarm, then you'd have to send it to secondary and also do a secondary, and also to determine what is the source of the radiation that's being emitted, whether it's a person, whether it's a commodity within the vehicle. And there are many things that move naturally, having the proper documents and paperwork, through various media, travel sources. But it's just another thing is how we, harden up the ports and the things that we're doing that are unbeknownst or, just not intrusive to people.
Laymen wouldn't have any idea what this was all about. So your explanations are great. It's not something people have to worry about as long as they're in compliance legally and otherwise when they're coming through. But it's nice to know. I like to know that I'm safe.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like I say, there are many things that are done that behind the scenes that are unknown, and a lot of things even good to be unknown. But it's again all going back to the theme of what we're trying to is making our borders, making our country safe. So as people, the legitimate travel and trade, enter the United States, it's done so in a safe manner, and the American citizens, the folks that have our public trust and our interests at heart, are going to know that we're doing what they're asking us to do each and every day.
Are there new chapters to be added after? We're doing this on June 1st, 2009. This is the day when the Western Hemisphere Initiative technically, is in
Full
place
implementation.
And full implementation. Is there another chapter soon, or do you?
I'm sure there's other things on the horizon. I may not know all about them at this point, but it's
enough to keep going what we got here today.
Yeah, it's all an evolution, and the goals behind it all, Gordy, is that we make America safer, America safe, and that to know that the things that are being done along our borders, at our ports of entries, whether air, sea, or land, is that we are doing things that are making it safe. And we're not looking to have people, hey, you got a pat on the back and all that kinds of things, but we have a lot of dedicated, hardworking officers that are doing a lot of best practices and things that are making their area of responsibility, being vigilant each and every day that they're in and around the work environment, paying attention to the surroundings, to look for the abnormalities, whether it's in a vehicle, a person, cargo container, a ship, whatever the commodity that they're doing, is just remain vigilant in their environment.
The Port of Champlain has hundreds of employees. I forgot how many, 600 or 800 or something like that.
Hopefully in my reign we can get that high, but not quite that high. We're probably somewhere over the, in the 400, a little over 400 employees, and that covers the whole area Port of Champlain.
I mention that because I don't know how often there are job openings, but I can understand a young person might be watching this saying, hey, this looks like something I might like to get into.
Absolutely. I mean, the website is usajobs.gov.
That's good.
You go on that website and just, they have all the federal agencies, and, you just go to an agency search. I mean, you can have all the jobs, but if you go to an agency search, you'd go under, Department of Homeland Security and look under Customs and Border Protection, and then click on that, and it'll give you the jobs. And I got to tell you, Gordy, when they do this nationally, they'll get 5,000 to 7,000 applications when they open it up. And sometimes after, if it's open for 3 weeks, after 2.5 weeks, they'll say, hey, it's closing early, because they just have the vast volume of applications, and then they process through all those, who's qualified out of that, and then they set up for testing, and then they do written tests, and then you also have medical exams and interviews and all kinds of things like that. But as a veteran of the military services, you can bypass a lot of that testing stuff by not having to take it, just by the virtue of being a veteran. So I would just encourage people to always look on the usajobs.gov. There's also recruiting fairs that go on in the area. We always have recruiters out. It's a good opportunity. I mean, when you look at the North Country, it's probably your federal, state, and city local governments are probably the vast majority of the jobs that are in the area. So, as you mentioned, it is a good job, and there's opportunities galore. It just all depends on what you want to do. As for myself, this was my 9th move in 18 years.
Oh my goodness.
In the service, but it doesn't have to be that drastic. But when you talk to a majority of the employees here, a lot of them are from here. This is home for them, or in the North Country, or in this area. Whereas it's kind of unusual. You go to other places in the country, it may not be as prevalent. The higher numbers of people are in the areas where they want to be. And as you mentioned, it is a great job. You can do with what you want to do with it.
They obviously hire the best people, Paul.
We try to hire the best and the brightest. I mean, it's a lot different. I won't say a lot different. When I went to school and learned, nearly 18 years ago this summer, less than a month, it's like we're teaching the same things. Maybe the methods are a little different. Maybe today's more hands-on. Maybe today's more electronically savvy with the way that the newer generation X, as they say, is in this technology and things. So to them, it's not as difficult or whatever, learning all these new medias. Because I've always said, just look at the changes that have happened in our lifetimes. Microwave came from space exploration. The camcorders, cell phones, pagers, all that electronic media, laptops, all these things. We embrace it, in our lives, no matter what the technology is. But in the work environment, sometimes it can be a little daunting, is to say, hey, I don't want you to move from this spot, and they want you and I to reverse spots, and it's like, well, I can't do that because I'm so used to doing it this way, which was, we mentioned earlier, is thinking outside the box and just don't always approaching things, hey, this is how I've always done it, so this must be the only way to do it. There are a lot of things we can point out like that, but it's a compliment to the employees.
It is.
And as you mentioned, they are the best and the brightest.
A good group. Good, starting with you. Let's move along. Let this guy go by. All right, we're inside the building, Paul. What are we looking at here?
Well, here you have multiple agencies, not only Customs and Border Protection in the facilities, but you also have a Fish and Wildlife office along with the Fast Nexus office. And some of the uniqueness of having the Fast Nexus is that when you apply for the card, you would sit down and set up your appointment. It's all done electronically. But then when you set up your appointment, you would see the U.S. official to do that portion, and then you just get up out of that chair, go to another chair within the same office.
Great. You don't have to come back another day,
Absolutely.
Go to another building.
Absolutely. So now you sit down with your CBSA counterparts, and they go through their interview process so that you can, when all checks and balances are made, that you're going to get your card. But again, as you said earlier, it's just like you're not sitting here doing an appointment today and say, well, you got to come back in 2 weeks and do the other agency. It's one-stop shopping. It's also how to facilitate, how to do a lot of different things in the processes, but do it smarter and do it better. So it just improves that whole entire process.
It's so nice to have so many things. Anything that's connected with the border is right here. Fish and Wildlife.
Fish and Wildlife. We also have Food and Drug Administration. Yeah. So I call it the one-stop shopping, where when you're doing a cargo entry and it has various, you have your CBP computer work done to it, you're having your agricultural inspection, and you're also having food and drug when they have their interest. But it can all be done at one time, all coordinated, so that you're doing one exam, not three. Thereby, again, you're facilitating the legitimate trade, and so that it come here, it can get what needs to be done, and can go on down the road into the commerce, which is really good. It's a unique thing of some of the things that we have going on here at the Port of Champlain. That's a best practice for CBP.
So this is a pretty large building, because you have a big area on the other end of it, right?
We also have warehouse where you got like 6 cargo bays where you can do examinations. So if you needed to do a more intensive examination, looking at for a variety of things, like say trademark regulations or IPR stuff, international property rights, just a whole host of things. Or you're doing a closer examination to make sure it might be a new commodity to the area. Like I say, we get things from A to Z. You name it, it's come through the area Port of Champlain. But if it's a new manufacturer, you want to know what those products are. So as you're doing the examinations and you see them in the future, it's already, you're already familiar with it.
That's wonderful. All right, we'll move along. Thanks. Just to update our viewers, we're at the big port of Champlain, north of Plattsburgh, on the day when the Western Hemisphere Initiative is put into play and into effect, and we're interviewing the Port Director, Paul Mongillo. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Gordy. How are you doing today?
We're just doing great. We're still on our feet after all this time. Where are we in this big warehouse? What is this for?
We're in the warehouse, which has 8 cargo bay doors, as you can see. And what happens is when there are cargo containers that need a further intrusive inspection or examination for a multitude of reasons, we can back them up to the cargo doors here, unload the commodities, and conduct the examinations anywhere from trademark issues or international property rights, or could be looking for markings, or just that it might have been a first-time commodity in the area. And the uniqueness of being able to do this is that we have forklifts that are here, we have officers and agriculture specialists that are trained and certified that can run the forklifts. So it's kind of like one-stop shopping in a sense, to where you can come in, we can unload it, we can do the things that we need to do, get it loaded, and then again, get it released so it's into the commerce as it should be. Again, it's not every container that we're looking at, but the ones that we need to look at, we have the facilities and the technology and the people to do what needs to be done.
I said it wasn't your grandfather's border. I wasn't kidding. In the old days, they used to have to pull stuff off every truck. It's a lot different now. And besides, as you mentioned before, a lot of stuff happens before the trucks ever get down to this spot.
Oh, absolutely. With the electronic age and different systems online, you have, your ABI, the pre-filer, and now ACE is coming on, the automated cargo interface system, which is starting to more and more is coming online. In fact, we've had training this just last week, and we're going to have more training here in the month of June and July. So it's as the technology and the different things are enhanced to help us do our jobs better, more efficient, we pass that along to all the employees so that they're proficient into that technology. So it's like you said, I remember the days where we would do it by hand, the boxes, or you would have the rollers, and then you'd have rollers and many things. But it's this technology is, again, it's looking at the things that you need to look at. It's putting scrutiny on the things that need scrutiny and letting the other legitimate trade and travel, enter the commerce as it should be.
In this day and age, ever since 9/11, we've heard everybody preaching, be aware of your surroundings, pay attention. Here at the border, everybody has to pay attention, be alert, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've been saying it since 9/11, and we're approaching 7.5 years since the events of 9/11 in 2001. But again, we have to remain vigilant each and every day. We can't afford to let our guard down or to have a bad day just because of the consequences that can happen from that. As we mentioned earlier, being the front line, America's front line, the first line of defense, with many things, you have that one opportunity when you see the person, coming in a vehicle or a commodity coming in, and you're doing all the things that you need to do, and you're making hundreds of decisions each and every day in seconds, but is to take the time and use that technology that you have to help inform you to make that decision, because once it goes down the road, I mean, it's too late to do anything about it. When you hear about it, again, it's tragic. So, like I say, very good officers. They're very diligent. They are vigilant in their surroundings, and I can't be more proud of the things they do each and every day.
And I have to tell our viewers, if they're not aware of it yet, that a lot of the stuff the commodities that come through here might end up in New Orleans, Louisiana, in many states on the eastern seaboard, just about anywhere.
Oh, no, absolutely. With the way that you have rail, not only the rail, the stuff coming over the cargo, but the tractor trailers. I mean, you could even have things that it's hard to believe, but that would in transit through the United States from Canada all the way through the United States for a destination of Mexico. I mean, that's not uncommon.
That's a good point too, yes.
And vice versa. I mean, you would have stuff just with the NAFTAs and the different trade agreements that you have, just how things get manufactured and put together, and it's a global economy. It really is. It's not just, hey, it's specific to Canada, because they could get entities from around the world as well, put things together. So, as you mentioned, you see this all over the United States.
There are a lot of other businesses, not directly related with what you do, but indirectly related, that have huge facilities here, like UPS, for example.
Oh, absolutely. And when we get UPS comes through each and every day, and we do our examinations, and again, as we talked earlier, working with the stakeholders and things, is to devise systems and plans to be able to most effectively look at the commodities and look at the things that we need to look at, and to do those types of examinations by being the least intrusive, instead of saying, yeah, we have that right to do that. Okay, but also they have the right, and also they have the expectation that to meet their customers' things. And in the middle, we do get together, and we put a lot of best practices forward. So, and that's awesome, because again, it's not just us saying this is what we want to do. It's also working with the stakeholders and having that relationship to be able to say, this is what we need to do. We understand what you need to do. How do we meet in the middle to do what we each need to do? And it works well it's almost seamless to the end user.
Like I said, there are so many businesses, when people, I'm sure, will have an enhanced knowledge of what happens at the border just by watching this program. And as they drive north or south, they'll see signs within 5 miles of this place that they never saw before. Because we got brokers, we got duty free, we got a lot of things operating.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, just on the West Service Road, you got the Derringers, the FedEx, the UPS Solutions, and various companies like that. But also within the facilities here, we have offices and office space for those various brokers, and so that they can also meet the demands of the folks that they're servicing and the companies by being on site, by being available. We're a 24-hour, 7 days a week, 365 days, so we're not ever closed, and therefore the trade community and the stakeholders are also the same thing. They're here servicing their customers whenever they may be crossing. So it's a lot of coordination, it's a lot of good things that are going on, but again, we meet with the stakeholders, we have quarterly meetings, monthly meetings, individualized meetings where needed to work through any and all issues that may arise, because the bottom line is we're each trying to do the jobs that we're held and obligated to do, but we do it in a manner that is easy on everyone.
There's a very complicated network of visual connections with all the other ports, and with things that are happening around here in a huge control room that you have. The last time I walked in there, I said to the young lady, "How can you pay attention?" So, how many monitors in there? There's at least 10.
Yeah, we can look at each one of our ports within my area of responsibility. So, and again, a lot of it is for a lot of things. Not only is it security, but when there are incidences that happen, that particular task officer can do a lot of the coordinations with the state and locals, with the U.S. Border Patrol, with our immigration and customs enforcement folks. So yes, it's very daunting and it's tasking, but it also, you have to pay attention to detail. You have to be vigilant to look at the various things, and then also to determine, hey, that's out of the ordinary, something's not right with this picture, I need to let somebody know. But again, it's all that coordination. It's all, again, goes back to being vigilant, dedicated officers doing the things that they're asked to do each and every day, and they do it willingly.
And a lot of these, not a lot of them, but some of these outports, the rural ports, aren't manned at night, are they?
Yeah, yes. Most of the ports are, like, for example, Jameson Line is 8 hours a day. It's open 8 to 4. A lot of the other ports, if they're not 24 hours a day and they're only 8 hours a day, come May 1st through September 30th, then they're open between 8 in the morning and midnight. 2400, so they're open 16 hours a day, but many of them are opened 16 hours a day normally. Of course, the area port of Champlain, the port of Champlain, is open 24/7. This cargo facility is open 24/7. A lot of the outports will be 24/7. There's just a couple that'll be just 16 hours a day during certain portions of the year, like the summer months.
How often is it a problem with people, with illegal aliens trying to cross the border where we don't have a legal border crossing? Because we have a lot of rural and wooded areas.
Right, and what happens is the jurisdiction, how it formulates, is the United States Customs and Border Protection controls what goes on at the ports of entries. So your Rouse's Point, Overton's, Cherubusco, Chattagay, Jameson Line, the Port of Champlain, CBP is taking care of those issues. When you're outside of those ports of entries, that's where the United States Border Patrol comes into effect. They monitor between the ports of entry. So that's how you have that jurisdictional, where people, can, think of, whether you're wearing green, blue, or one of the state, the state police or gray, or sheriffs, or a different entity. But in essence, to break down what we do federally, is the Border Patrol does between the ports of entry, and the Customs and Border Protection is at the ports of entry. However, having said earlier, things that we may do here or things that they may do there may impact one area or the other. So we always have to be in communication to understand what is going on between the two, so that we are prepared in the event that other things are going on in one area or the other.
And it's a lot easier to communicate these days than it was even 25 or 30 years ago.
No, absolutely. The technology with the radios, the cell phones we talked earlier, just that types of technology, is the video technology. It just all helps us all do the jobs that we're responsible for, what the American public is expecting of us each and every day.
I think now that people are talking about it more often, those of us who walk down city streets, not necessarily in Plattsburgh but elsewhere, we're looking around to see where there might be cameras. We know that there are cameras, security cameras in most stores, and look at how valuable they are in finding lost children and in solving crimes, et cetera, et cetera. There are lots of cameras around this Champlain border crossing.
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, just in everyday life, as we talked with technologies, how it vastly improves and helps your environment. It's like, you know, I can't be everywhere. You know, our managers can't be everywhere. The officers can't be everywhere. And that's where the general public helps us with their eyes and ears to help assist so that we're all on the same page. We're all, you know, if something happens in the United States, it's all our responsibility. It's all our issues. But the more that we work in concert with each other and the more that we all understand what those domains and, you know, shared responsibilities are, the lot better that in general we're all going to be.
I think of just having come up here and talk to you today. Let's go for another chapter. Well, we're proving your words every minute, Paul. U.S. Food and Drug Administration right here.
Yeah, as I mentioned, we have multiple different agencies: Food and Drug Administration, the Fish and Wildlife, the Nexus office with CBSA officers right here on the facility. So it is kind of a one-stop shopping depending on what the needs are and what you're trying to do at the border. We're able to facilitate that by just having all these agencies here to make it much simpler on the public as well as for our missions as well.
And I think a lot of the things that we've shown today will certainly enhance our viewers' ideas of what it's like to go across a border and back. But more important than that, how to keep a border safe, because that's the whole point.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it is, the bottom line is, you know, is keeping America safe and the border safe, keeping our, you know, my area of responsibility is safe. And like I say, it starts with the employees, it ends with the employees, and everybody in between, no matter what your mission or job function is within CBP, it's all relative to the bottom line is keeping America safe. And to that end, we try to, like I say, we try to be inclusive of everybody. We try to sit and listen and have the ideas and put them out, because whatever processes are being in place, it's all for the better. But the frontline officers are the ones that are putting in the directives, the regulations, the policies. So I have to be in tune with them in order to see what's working, what's not working, so that I have opportunities to brief my superiors and my bosses is to say, hey, this isn't working, but this is what we did, or this is an area that maybe needs national attention because everybody is affected by the same situation. So here's what we've done to combat it. So that, again, that's how we get up to our best practices. But the employees on the front line are the ones that are implementing all this. So we have to stay, or at least in my opinion, I have to stay in tune with that and have the manager stay in tune with that, because they're the ones closest to that activity.
It's a well-tuned orchestra, that's what it is. We're going to go outside and look at trucks.
Okay.
All right. All right, we're up where the trucks are, but we're looking at some of the signage here, and you were explaining all the different ways the trucks can go through here.
Right, and they're directed whether they've been released. You know, they're going to hit. There's a sign for 87 going south. There's also the VACUS, the stationary VACUS, if they need to have additional examinations, or if they need to come inside, whether it's paying truck fees, whether they got an intensive exam, whether they're meeting their brokers, and different things like that. They're directed there. And then, of course, behind us we have, multiple lanes, where this very first lane is the exit lane. So if they were sent to the back for an intensive exam or for any kind of examination, when they're leaving, they're all going to come right here to this choke point. Even though you see multiple lanes behind them, those are all entrance lanes from Canada. And we know by, when halfway around the bend, which the trucks are in the way now, when they're at a certain point and there's trucks fan there, and we may have, the lanes, it's a 20-minute wait. That's how we have benchmarks out here to determine how long is the wait. If, for example, I were to see trucks, back up behind the Canadian duty free, where you see this truck rolling in now, trucks are stationary there or beyond. From my window, I can call downstairs and say, hey, what's going on? How many lanes do we have open? Because part of this whole, the facility and having this massive lanes and stuff to conduct your business is being able to staff it properly and to be ahead of it, instead of saying, yes, these trucks are here for 1 hour, but in 20 minutes I'll have another lane open because of whatever the reasons. Is we know historically what the natures are, or what the business is, and things like that, so we can stay ahead of the curve, so to speak. Like recently we had the Victoria Day holiday. So about 2 or 3 days after that, as the factories were opening back up and the commodities were being, loaded and coming in here. Wednesday, Thursday, you could see a little backup, but again, we were ahead of the curve because you could see it, but you already had people in the booths, so you didn't have that. It was seamless to the truck drivers, but internally, there are things that go on all the time that aren't so apparent to the public.
This is an important spot for us to be, as Calvin mentioned, because in years past, there were a lot of snafus at this border crossing. There were vehicle accidents, there were people who were injured. So this was a primary focus when the changes started to be made. And what a difference for those people that might have been here or worked here all those years ago. Just take a look at this today, folks, and see how much better it is.
Oh yeah, and another thing too, we talk with the technologies, is all the booths have radios in them. So we're in constant communication with supervisors or other employees that will be in marked vehicles that need to direct or do anything that necessary out here, to keep things safe or to hold all the traffic up because you need to move a particular container to a certain spot or whatever. So a lot of that is coordinated. Mentioning about the facilities, it reminds me, just last month we had 2 officers retire, one with 27 years of service and one with 32 years of service.
Wow.
And the reason I bring that up is because in talking to them, they worked in the cargo environment. They mentioned how this was the 3rd facility that they've worked in their career, because they started in the early 1970s, and in the mid-1970s with a facility. In the mid-1970s, they had what was destroyed and rebuilt around last year with the completion of the construction, and then been here since October or so in the new cargo facility. And it's very rare, because you find people that work many years, they might get to a new facility, so they see 2 in their lifetime at the same area, but rare do you see 3. And I said, yeah, that's part of being a first, and that's awesome for them, because you talk about change. Just think of the changes they saw in the processing over their careers.
This is an important border crossing. I'll say it. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. This is not small potatoes here. When you're talking about, I think the figure was $19 billion worth of commodities that come across the border.
Right.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. A lot of commercial entities with the $19 billion in trade, coupled with 900,000 vehicles and passengers and things. So it is not. And to think, when you talk to, again, some of the veteran officers, how they talk about Rouse's Point, the port, how that was the Champlain.
Oh yes.
Way back in the day, but when Interstate 87 was completed northbound, then that, a lot of that traffic transitioned here because of the infrastructure on the highways between Montreal and the United States. So so there's a lot of people seeing a lot of changes, but it's really nice to see that you're in a modern facility, a facility that can do what you need to do on a day in and day out basis well into the future.
And it pleases me that when we came up here this morning on the first day of June, and this new initiative for the Western Hemisphere is officially instigated today, that things are going so smoothly, because some things you can't hide, and we're watching them, and their trucks are going through and the cars are going through.
Yeah, it's very gratifying. It's very gratifying to know, as we stand here in the cargo facility, we can look across to the vehicle traffic and we see one car in line.
Isn't it amazing?
And
there were a few when we started over there, but they were zippity-doo-dah.
Which again, I think goes back to pre-planning, having a facility that can handle these types of infrastructure changes and these types of changes in the law, as well as the commercial entities. It's a lot to do with our congressmen, our senators, even our leadership within CBP, to not only have the facilities in place, but also have the personnel in place to kind of meet those same demands as well.
With this program on the internet, as it is in several places, including Plattsburgh.com, people elsewhere in the world will get a chance to see how we do business. If they see the fact that we were here today, did this wonderful interview, they look at this, they'll say, wow,
yeah,
I might consider visiting the North Country.
I would recommend it. I mean, as you know, I've been here 3 months, but it grows on you every single day. The people are wonderful and warm and very receptive. In the work environment, I can't ask for anything more from my managers and employees. whether they're uniformed or non-uniformed, the cooperation we have, the respect you have in the community, the things that we're trying to do to make it seamless so that as people, whether it's doing a commercial entry or coming in through the vehicles, that it is seamless for them, and that we are doing what is mandated by Congress and the general public expects of us to keep our country safe and sound.
Summer's not going to be here for another 20 days. It seems like it might take longer than that as we do this on the first day of June. I hope it's a nice, long, hot summer, that we all get to enjoy that. But I know that things at the border crossing here in Champlain will be better this year than ever before.
Yeah, I believe so, Gordy. I think just because of the facilities, it makes the process even better than years past. And this summer will be the first summer that we have all 10 lanes in operation. And I think we've seen it a little bit through the holidays we've had thus far this year, and it's only the first, through May, through Memorial Day. The facility has held up really well, so I'm really encouraged as we move forward.
I also want to mention to people, if they have any, it's hard to believe that there might be any more questions after all the questions we've asked and you've covered so beautifully and artfully here today. But if they need more information, there are, as you said at the beginning, there are lots of websites that they can check into.
Yes, we have cbp.gov. Is a one website. With the WITI initiative, you can get to gethome.gov. getyouhome.gov. So you have multiple websites, and when you get onto one, it'll click you to the others if you're just asking the specific, on the different icons or searching through the various ones. So there's a lot of information. We're a technology society, technology organization, so you'll find a lot on the website.
And those people who are watching it who don't have the proper paperwork to comply with this new initiative, we urge them to get busy and get it, because it's easy to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the states are prepared, the federal government's prepared with Department of State, the enhanced driver's license, they've been issuing these out for a while. The folks in Canada and the provinces have issued, even the Premier of Quebec has one now, so it's everybody's doing it, and again, it's all for being seamless.
And when you get that proper information, you should be proud instead of sad, because it'll be easier for you to go wherever you want to go.
Oh, absolutely. And in the Western Hemisphere, I mean, that's what it is. It's how do we facilitate the trade and the travel, legitimate trade and travel, by still doing the missions that are so critical to us and what we're doing, defending our nation each and every day.
We got a lot of information here. I can't think of any other questions. Can you think of anything that you'd like to cover today that we haven't talked about?
No, I just want to let the folks know that as they travel about during the summer months and beyond, is that we are making it seamless. It is, it's for your safety as well as ours, but the documents are there. It's helping our job become a lot easier by just having a streamlined 4 different types of documents. But no matter what document you have, whether you're compliant or not compliant, we're going to be professional, courteous to you as you cross the borders. We talk about that all the time, and if there's ever issues on anything, there's always a duty supervisor and watch commander available. You just ask to speak to them, and they will take care of whatever issues need to be addressed at that moment.
The buck stops
right here.
It's hard to believe. But I may be a little biased after this nice tour that you gave us today, Paul, but I think the center of the Western Hemisphere is right here in Champlain.
Yeah, absolutely. As you can see, we haven't denied anybody. We facilitated, getting folks in. As we look now, we don't have any traffic, but that's awesome, though. But even if we did have traffic, Gordy, we're going to have the facilities to handle what's coming through the ports. We're going to have the personnel, and we're going to make it as seamless summer as possible for the folks.
We wish people happy traveling whenever they travel. Paul Mongillo, I want to thank you so much for inviting us here today.
Anytime, you're welcome, more than any time you want to come up.
Here's the guy that runs the A-Team. And who knows where we're going to be next time for our little